starting to wake up and say, you know what? Your oppression is not what you think it is.
No.
You know, you want to see real oppression. Go to Afghanistan right now where they're beating women in the streets, where they're killing people simply for having a
That was
different belief.
twice in 1 month. I agreed with Bill Maher. It was really, it was weird. It was like I was in the
I never
Twilight
expected
Zone or
to.
something.
Like, wait,
Yeah.
am I shifting or is he?
What's going on here?
Somebody talk to me here.
But hey, I don't know if my mood is sort of somber today and maybe even a little bit sullen. It's because there's so much heavy stuff happening right now. Yeah.
Last week was really heavy for me, and I kind of pushed through it, and now I feel all chipper again. But man, last week was pretty heavy, just trying to absorb the magnitude of, you know, all this stuff going on with possible mandatory vaccines in California. You know, a lot of people we know losing their jobs. I mean, it's just like really hitting home. It's like right in our face. It's at our doorstep. So
Yeah, and people going back to school, teacher friends getting trained up in other careers, kids facing that when they go into the schools. And yeah, there's a lot going on. And when we met, it was, you know, like we talked about with Darren, just how to stay close to your brothers, other patriots, get clarity on where you need to focus your time, energy, you know, get that recharge, because it's not slowing down.
Sure.
Everyone can see that. It's pretty evident.
We're going to get into a lot of meat and potato stuff today. But before that, I owe somebody an apology. And I don't do this often, not because I don't think I'm ever wrong. That's not it at all. It's just that I don't usually make public apologies, but I feel like in this instance, I need to. So a few weeks back, I'd said some things about Naomi Yamamoto right here in this room at this table. And that was in response to things that she had said about me, about my wife being a nurse, and things that she had posted online. So I retorted aggressively and said some things that I don't regret saying them at the time, but the way this all kind of unwrapped as the days and weeks went on, you know, I wish I could take that back. So I apologize for the things I said. We have edited out that portion where I talk about her, but nevertheless, the damage has been done, so that's why I'm apologizing. But Naomi was kind enough later to apologize for a comment that she had made publicly on social media, and we actually had a really nice conversation after that. So we might still be diametrically opposed politically, but I can sense when somebody really is remorseful and apologizes. So I will take that olive branch, you know, and meet in the middle. So and listen, this is important to understand. I don't hate my political opponents. I don't. I may say some strong things about them, but usually it's in response to really ugly things that they say about us, you know, because we don't attack them personally until they attack us personally, right? Our job is to articulate our views, our opinions about political things, our opinions about life's values, things that we want to, you know, show and teach people. Mm-hmm. But we should never, ever be the first ones to attack somebody personally for their views. Yeah. In fact, we've said over and over again, I'd be happy to invite people here with differing views and have a real debate, a real conversation about these things, you know. And if we don't end up agreeing, that's fine. The goal doesn't always have to be to agree at some point. It has to be able to live with ourselves and have the integrity to be able to voice our own views, you know, in a way that other people can maybe understand or not understand. But nevertheless, I don't hate my political opponents, you know, but they hate us. And that's what makes this really difficult. I mean, look what we're facing right now. Every one of us has been, every single one of us at this table has been attacked at some point on social media by people that have never met us, by people that we don't know personally. So
yeah, there's some of them I don't even want to mention their name because that's the only thing that brings them any attention.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we'll let them just suffocate.
I
Absolutely.
their names, but yeah, I mean, I was shocked when they smeared, because of our learning center, they smeared my son, a picture of my son on there.
And nothing makes you want to fight more than that.
Yeah, but I don't even know how to fight online. I'm terrible. What am I going to do? Start name calling on Facebook? Ooh, you know, like, I don't know.
hire some of them keyboard warriors.
Yeah, no
Jesus.
kidding. I'll create a fake alias like they do, and then really get nasty. Like,
You know, and I still haven't heard.
I don't know how to fight that.
I still haven't heard their point of view to the positive, right? I've not heard what they actually want. All I've heard is what they don't want. They don't like us.
Right.
They hate us. We're big, bad militia guys.
How dare you be
We like
patriots.
guns and we like the flag, and we raise our kids to salute the flag, and we teach our kids to be patriots, and they hate all that for some reason. And I don't know how that translates into being a terrorist. So when you warn people about what's coming, and when you have the threat of violence, here's the deal. I mean, we need to really have a paradigm shift here and define what violence is. every one of us is willing to use violence at some point, right? If somebody was threatening your family, your home, your livelihood.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, if somebody came up and grabbed your kid, I would hope that you would invoke and use some violence at that point to save yourself, save your family members, save somebody else, help someone. Violence is not a bad thing, but it can be a very bad thing.
It just needs to be used in the right way at the right time.
Time and a place.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And now I'm feeling like the weight of the world's upon us now. We're being backed into a corner more than we ever have before, to where, like John mentioned, now we're facing the very real possibility of a law being passed here in California where vaccines are going to be mandated, where you're not going to be able to go anywhere except for, I think, the grocery store or church.
Yep. Without showing a passport.
Yeah, and me as a business owner, I mean, everyone in here owns a business. We won't be able to employ anybody unless we force them to have a vaccine, which isn't going to happen. I mean, there's no way anybody at this table is going to enforce that.
I'm keeping my doors open. I'm just gonna go along with the business like I would any other day. I will not comply, and I suggest that everybody else just says, you know what? No. I mean, if we can't stop this thing on a county level and have our county representatives back us up and stand up for us, then we're going to have to stand up for ourselves. There's nobody riding in on a horse to come and save us. I'm sorry about it, but
it's on us.
It's on us, and it's up as us as individuals and us as a community to stand up against this all together. Because if we're not all together on this thing, then it's just one person, one crazy guy decided he wasn't going to shut his store. I mean, and I will be that crazy guy if I have to.
But at this point, I think you're crazy if you do shut your store down. If you're a business that complies at this point, listen,
you'll have to close in a place like this if you require a vaccine of all your customers.
We're not going to support you, and we're not even going to respect you. This whole idea, and Woody and I have talked about this. Woody brings this up quite a bit, how, we're all for freedom of choice. You can stay open or you can not stay open, but when you choose not to stay open, that's compliance, and compliance is exactly what opens the door for them to do more of this to us. People online are like, well, what's so bad? What are they doing? I can't believe they don't see it. I can't believe, and it's like the frog in a boiling water, right? Doesn't know it's being cooked till it's cooked. Well, why didn't that frog jump out? Well, the water was just kind of warming up slowly,
So I wrote this in my notes the other day. Compliance equals totalitarianism.
Yeah.
It was just so before I went to bed,
but it does, John. But that's a true statement. That is a true statement.
Well, and if you think this is a conspiracy theory, you can look up Assembly Bill 455 and
AB 455.
AB 455, and it's disguised as a transportation bill. That's what. If you just glance at it and don't read the fine print, that's
they
what
gutted the thing, right?
They gutted it, and filled it with. So all employers will be mandated to require the vaccine of all their employees and of their customers. So,
and you said they had the votes.
Yeah. So my brother. His boss was on a 2-hour conference call with an assemblyman last Friday that said they absolutely have the votes. In fact, I think it may have already passed the assembly, and now it's going to the Senate.
The state Senate.
Yeah, so they're thinking by sometime between November 1st and January 1st.
I don't care how you feel about vaccines. If that doesn't scare the shit out of you, you need to wake up.
Yeah, just a government mandated passport. That level of control, if that's not concerning to you, and that we need to start drawing that line and banding your brothers together, how to say no and figuring this thing out and getting the strength and guts and grit to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to do it. It's going to get so far for you that you're probably just going to be in some camp somewhere already locked up.
They'll load up themselves. Be brave for once in your life. If you've never
it feels
stood
good
up
to be
before.
brave. It feels so good to be
really
courageous.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring something up. I had this. I have a different way of looking at things sometimes because I don't know if it helps me deal with the magnitude of things coming on, but it's like I always try to look at the glass half full versus half empty. And, I was thinking about conflict, the word conflict and the meaning of conflict and how there's a lot of conflict, and conflict can be very, it can be very draining. It can be very difficult. But I was thinking about what would a world be without conflict, where that would mean everybody thought exactly the same. Right. And even though I wish more people were on the same page, I was kind of looking at it from a perspective that is kind of amazing that we have this diversity of thoughts, and just like conflict is just all part of that. And I'm just saying that's part of thinking independently. And it was just a different way I was looking at it,
I was at a leadership conference where they said that. They said, if you're sitting on a board and there's never conflict, then there's people there that aren't speaking what they really feel, because nobody agrees on everything.
Absolutely. You're right.
But
You're right.
but there should be no conflict over something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just
This is a line in the
anti-American.
sand issue.
Yeah.
You know?
Everybody should be on the same page with the freedom of choice. I mean,
Sure.
I'm not going to get into the whole abortion thing, but I mean, how is it that a lot of those people, and look, this is something we should be nonpartisan. I mean, we should all be on the same page. What's up with the people that say, my body, my choice? Why can't we say my body, my choice? Now that we're talking about mandated vaccines, people are losing their livelihood. I mean, research.
Well, their argument is that you're making them sick by not being vaccinated, which makes zero sense to me. If you have a vaccine, if you have the shield supposedly, right, then what do you care if I'm vaccinated or not?
Yeah.
Well, especially if I'm not symptomatic, So
And you have to
it just
address
doesn't make any sense.
the vaccine conversation for sure, because that's where people are caught. But that's where I was laughing at myself trying to shoot a selfie video. I was sitting on my lawnmower all fired up, and I'm like, this is going to be terrible. I'm not posting this thing.
But those are the best ones.
It was clarity, because it's not about the vaccine, and we didn't have these issues until the government oversteps. Now you have careers in jeopardy, retirements in jeopardy, people's freedom to go anywhere besides the grocery store and the church. Like, really? That's the only place we can go if we don't get the shot? Like, this is all issues, though. If you look at the source, it's not COVID. We didn't have a spike in COVID 3 months ago when this stuff got spooled up. It's government.
It's government.
And now we need supervisors and leaders that will see that and go, I don't want to be a part of that government that is forcing people. It's like peer pressure, right? That was partially what I was saying in the video. I said, I was taught as a kid, if you have a friend that says, drink that beer, you're not my friend anymore. Or you're not allowed to hang out with us unless you do this. We've all been taught not to go with that. Suddenly now, because it's coming from the government, we're supposed to, or some health official or pharmaceutical company, we're supposed to go along with it.
Sure.
That's terrible doctrine. It's putting all these people in this double bind, and there's always option C. That's the American way. Sure. We're not a dictatorship. So it's very clear, like, yes, we got to have the vaccine conversation, figure out where you stand with it personally, but realize that we have to have the choice. And now we won't have a shortage of teachers and schools shutting down, public safety, medical workers, military. You won't have a sudden staff shortage if you don't have government overreach. It's a very simple problem to fix.
Yeah, you
Don't
can
push
debate.
these
You can
mandates.
debate the vaccine. Yesterday after church, man, I end up in this conversation with a buddy of mine, and he's in charge. He takes care of all the COVID patients at one of our local hospitals. He's the guy who suits up, has this whole time, and he's totally pro-vaccine, and he has all the numbers to prove it. I mean, and he's sharper than I am on medical speak because I'm a barber. So he's just smoking it on me the whole time. And I'm like, well, I don't agree or whatever he says. But all that being said, he told me this, he goes, this is the best vaccine ever created.
Really?
He goes, in 5 years, you will eat your words. And I was like, well, we're going to see. And he goes, but all that being said, no one should be ever mandated to take a vaccine. Yeah. So this is a guy that's totally pro-vaccine.
And we need people like that. And I respect people like that. Listen, if you know more than me, great. Give me your opinion, but leave the choice up to me, for myself, for my kids. Don't tell me my kids can't go to school if they're not vaccinated, because remember, they were going to leave the children alone at first. And now they're not. Now it's 12 and up, right?
So we know what this does in the animal trials. We've seen the chicken trials. We've seen the rat trials. We've seen the, I forget what other animals rats. It doesn't matter. One other animal, I can't remember.
Was it ferrets?
Ferrets, yes, ferrets. And so the inventor of the mRNA gene therapy treatment, which is not technically a vaccine, I mean, he said never should this ever be given to a human or used for any, he said never inject this in a human. I mean, the guy who invented it, I'm just saying, how could there not be skepticism towards the guy that invented something? I mean, if I developed a rocket ship and I said, hey, if you get in this rocket ship, man, we tried it 100 times. It blew up every time. Don't do it. You know what I mean? That's where we're at right now.
Well, this guy told me, because I told him about that guy, and he goes, yeah, well, the 4 other guys that worked with him say it's the best vaccine ever.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter.
There's people on both sides. There's good people on both sides. Lani had a great fundraiser the other night, you know, and there was a doctor there who was telling me and my wife that we need to get the vaccine.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. And he's a patriot. He's like one of us. He goes, dude, we love what you're doing. Anything we can do to help, let us know. And he's like, you guys need to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah, I know. That's weird, huh?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? Right after I told him, I was like, I can't believe they're going to make us all get vaccinated. He's like, well, you need to.
And if this flips for all those people
Yeah.
that are, so pick which side of the fence you're on with vaccine and just put yourself on the other side if it's forced, right?
Yeah.
So if you're over here and you're like, well, I won't really fight this because I agree with the vaccine. Well, the next thing, if you're on the wrong side of this line in the sand, you're going to be going, damn it, I should have fought the vaccine.
Yeah, sure, but
because you don't want them to allow them to mandate this kind of thing.
there's people that have died from this vaccine, people that have injury now from this vaccine, self-reported.
Yep.
And if you look at this, look at the VAERS. I mean, there's a ton. I mean, John probably knows better than me how many numbers.
It's crazy.
Of people have
more
done this.
people have died from this mRNA gene therapy treatment than all the other vaccines combined, period, ever. Just take them all and stack them together. There's already been more people have died from this.
And then anytime you bring up something like that, the opposition, is just so pro-vaccine and it's their belief system, they just go into this thing of calling it all misinformation. Well, theirs is not solid. Well, we use it for all the other vaccines. Like, what the heck? Now it's not valid. And then, or the ivermectin conversation. Well, now it's a neurotoxin, all this stuff. You can't dose it right. No, what? You just can't break through because it's a belief system.
Well, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We can talk all day about it shouldn't be mandated, even if it worked.
And that's a unifier,
Yep.
and that's it, because I could be wrong. And I'll admit that I'm never going to say, hey, I'm 100% right. I could be wrong. This could be the safest vaccine ever, and maybe we're just being lied to on the other side. I don't think that's true, but I'm open to the idea, right? What
it's
I'm not open
true.
to,
I look at statistics.
but what I'm not open to is somebody making us do it, and forcing it on us and saying you cannot live your life freely unless you have this. You cannot go out to eat, can't go to a movie, can't go to a concert, a theater, whatever, unless you have this.
Terrible. Well, and that's a
horrible approach.
So, if we look at all the things that we have the freedom of choice on that are massively destructive to lives, even if you take it to just sugar. Mm-hmm. And if this was tied to obesity, the death rate is, and the government went to outlaw sugar. Mm-hmm. No, you can't invade those freedoms that far. But sugar has every characteristic of a drug and is a massive contributor to COVID death. More than any other crap that's thrown out there is obesity. It's like the number one.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm. And so, but we're not doing anything on that.
And we can all agree the FDA has lost all credibility, probably way back in the opioid crisis. They've approved cigarettes. I mean, you can go down the list of things that are harmful to you that the FDA has said, oh, no, this is...
Yeah, they're obviously bought.
Except for Copenhagen. Copenhagen's good.
Copenhagen is good.
That warning sign on there is just, that's just a California thing. No, I was going to say, I agree with you guys 100% saying that it doesn't matter whether it works or not. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But I mean, I spend hours and hours on the statistics, and we know the numbers aren't 100%. We know that people, a vaccine death doesn't get covered by insurance. So if you die in a hospital, it's less likely to be a vaccine death. But so I was just looking at the numbers, which we know aren't going to be 100% accurate. But you take the countries with the highest vaccination rates, okay? You look the whole list up, okay? You take the highest vaccine rates from the top, and then you take the lowest vaccine rates from the bottom. And I built graphs out of this. Every single country that has the lowest vaccine rates is way down here. The nearest one to India, which India was at the higher side of vaccine deaths for having as low of a vaccine rate, which is like 10.46%. Okay. They were a little bit higher deaths than a lot of the other countries like Africa and Kenya and all these other countries that were on the list. And then you take the highest side, which is US, Australia and United Kingdom and all these other countries. And you add, so you take the highest vaccinated countries, the lowest vaccinated countries, and the COVID death rate is right there along with it. The more the country was vaccinated, the more the death rate is. I mean, you look at them, the graphs almost go identical. Here's the COVID death rates right here for the countries with the low vaccine rate, and here's the one with the higher. As they got more vaccinated, the COVID deaths rise right along with it. And I don't think you could, I'm not taking one country, comparing it to another country. I'm taking the whole bottom list and the top of the list. So I'm not doing, and
You're trying to find a trend.
The trend is 100% always the same.
Right.
The more they're vaccinated, the more COVID deaths. And
I've actually met people, shoot, my uncle, got the vaccine, then did a bunch of research, listened to a lot of things. Now he says, man, I wish I hadn't gotten it. And the best thing I've heard is you can't get unvaccinated. You can always get vaccinated later. So if in a month there's like this, empirical truth that says, hey, this is it. The vaccine's good for you. It's going to save your life.
Right.
We can always get it if we choose to, but if I've gotten it and find out that this is not good for me, I can't undo what's already done.
Yeah.
And then my grandmother, 91 years old, gets a vaccine. My uncle takes her, gets a vaccine, has a heart attack right after,
Yeah.
Doesn't die, but it's like all of a sudden, you've been healthy your whole life, super
There's
lucid.
a lot of those coincidental ones that aren't even getting pointed to the vaccine, but it's the only variable that came into the person's life, and then you have this immediate event.
And for those people that were not really credible, they might say, "Oh, look at these guys: a gym owner, a bar owner, a Northern Roots owner, and a barber." So we may not be as credible as some people when it comes to this, but one thing that everybody sitting at this table is credible on, and that is standing up for what you believe in and having the courage to do it. And that's kind of what I want to talk a little bit about today, that, hey, coming down the line with these mandates right now, your kids are watching you, your community's watching you, and believe it or not, the decisions you're going to make in these next 60 to 90 days are going to change your life forever. There's things worse than dying. You know what I mean? I mean, your kids later, 20 years from now, maybe will say, hey, my mom was a nurse when she had to quit her job because they were going to make her.
Last year it went, California had the first time where more moved out, the state. What's going to happen with vaccine passports? What do you think that's going to do to your real estate values?
Oh, it's going to crush them.
I don't need to be a real estate expert to see that people don't want to live in a place where there's that much control. Because what if you just forget your vaccine passport? Now they're going to put it in your phone, and it's
and
just
all the
this
best
trail.
people.
Just
All the
follow
best people will be the ones leaving. A lot of really
Unfortunately,
good
that's how it goes. I mean, it's really good people that leave because they have the mobility, right, to be able to pick up and go.
Yeah.
And they're more
people can't.
freedom-loving type people.
They are.
Yeah.
So
They are. Ronald Reagan said it, right? He said that liberty's always one generation away from becoming extinct.
Yep.
It's one day going to be something that we tell our children about, how it was. And we're there, man. This is horrible. I mean, what's going on right now? And this is not only with regard to the vaccine or masks or anything having to do with COVID. The whole world's upside down right now. I mean, look what's going on right now at the national level. Look what's going on in our military right now. Our military is more concerned now with teaching critical race theory, teaching to accept transgenderism. It's become a social experiment where the focus is no longer identifying, closing with, and killing the enemy, which is always what the mission of the military has been.
Yeah.
It is now creating sort of like a university utopia, right? Where they're trying to indoctrinate, brainwash these young men and women into believing a certain way. That's never been the job of the military.
Right.
It's always been to train and to equip young men and women to go kill the enemy. And
They're not being led by war fighters right now.
not anymore.
This
I'm
Millie's a clown.
so disappointed with these generals now. I remember being a young Marine, especially a young officer as a lieutenant, where you see these generals, and they've gotten there by merit. We used to be a meritocracy where people would get somewhere in life. They would accomplish things by what they had done, right? I shouldn't say that. They would get to certain positions based on their accomplishments. Well, that's no longer the case. It's not a meritocracy anymore in the military. Now it's a political game.
Yeah.
It's all whose ass you kiss. It's all
who's the most woke?
Yeah, who you do the favors for, who's the most woke, who's able to adapt to this new ideology, right? And
You're not going to move up anymore if you don't push the agenda.
look
or
at
the
Mark
narrative
Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The chairman himself now is pushing this, and he's telling officers now that they need to start reading Marxist books to be able to understand what's going on in the world. Are you kidding me? And we have the worst. I mean, this Secretary of Defense would never, ever in a million years be where he's at if he wasn't woke. And I'm sorry to say it, but if he was a white guy, he wouldn't be there either. This is all part of that movement. It's they think they're being anti-racist. They're actually being very racist. By appointing people of color to positions that they don't deserve to be in. And this is just not right. what we're seeing now, I think, is we're going to see more of. We're going to see a slew of officers and I think senior enlisted personnel who are going to say, you know what, this is it. This is the end of the road for me. I've had a great career. I've done the things that I wanted to do, but it's time for me now to exit the Marine Corps, to exit the Navy, the Army, whatever service you serve, and move on to the next chapter in their lives, because I think they're ready for a real fight. I think they're ready to now take the fight to the real enemy, which is the one within that is really threatening to destroy our country.
That's a double-edged sword right there, you know, right? I mean, it's really sad because it's going to weaken the military, you know, on a major level. But on the other hand, if they're going to join the fight with the people, and I mean that in a nonviolent way, but by exposing corruption, by maybe seeking positions of power in local government.
You know, the military is the strongest foreign policy tool that we have as a country, right? And when the people making that policy fail, it doesn't matter how powerful our military is, you know. I remember years and years ago, I think I just come into the Marine Corps, General Chuck Kulak was still a commandant, and all the chiefs were sitting before Congress. I don't know if it was in the House or the Senate, and you had every service chief, you know, and this was their chance to ask for money. It was a chance to ask for an increase in their budgets for their respective service. And everybody's asking for the world, right? The Air Force is asking for more money for jets. You know, the Navy wants, you know, upgrades to their ships, and you know, and the Army wants whatever the Army does, and then the Marine Corps chief, the commandant, it gets to him, and he goes, "My Marines are just fine with what they have." I was like, "Holy smokes, man! We need new barracks. We need, you know, new gear, new equipment, better equipment." And he didn't ask for anything because they've always done way more with less. You know, so when we say that the military needs all of these things to be powerful, it's really a misunderstanding. You know, what we need is focused warriors. What we need is people with a mindset that they're going to go kill the enemy no matter what, no matter whether I have a $10 backpack or a $1,000 backpack, whether I have a $10 rifle or $1 million rifle. It doesn't matter. You know, the weapon is right here. The weapon is here. So to your point, John, you know, when you're saying it's going to weaken the military, you're right. It is going to weaken the military because we're taking away the heart and soul. We can have the best weapon systems in the world. If we don't have young men and women that are trained and equipped and empowered to go close with and destroy the enemy, then it doesn't matter.
And people in positions that are willing to make the right decision and not just follow, you know what I mean?
Sure. So
we
just had one of the biggest failures in our lifetime happen. We lost 13 service members, you know, 12 Marines and a corpsman last week, due to nothing more than failed leadership. And let's roll this clip. I mean, this is a really, really interesting thing for me, is this gentleman here, Stuart Scheller, Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Marine Corps. He is, or was, a battalion commander with Advanced Infantry Training Battalion on the East Coast. I don't want to unwrap the whole story before I listen to what he has to say here. So go ahead and play that. And if I need to stop it at any points, because I want to emphasize certain things that he's talking about.
United States Marine Corps. I'm the current battalion commander for Advanced Infantry Training Battalion. I've been in the Marine Infantry for 17 years. Started my tour with Victor 1-8. It's the current unit that's doing perimeter security, dealing with the mess that's going on there. You can see open source reporting that there was an explosion and some people were killed. I know through my inside channels that one of those people that were killed was someone that I have a personal relationship with. Won't go into more details because the families are still being notified. Not making this video because it's, you know, potentially an emotional time. Making it because I have a growing discontent and contempt for my perceived ineptitude at the foreign policy level, and I want to specifically ask some questions to some of my senior leaders. And I'll say, as a person that's not at 20 years, I feel like I have a lot to lose. If you play chess, you can only see 2 to 3 moves out because there's too many variables. I thought through if I post this video, what might happen to me, especially if the video picks up traction, if I have the courage to post it. But I think what you believe in can only be defined by what you're willing to risk. So if I'm willing to risk my current...
What you believe in, it can be defined, but what you are willing to risk. I've listened to this over and over again, and that's the line that stands out so much, you know? And how often have we heard people say, hey, you know what? I believe in what you're doing, but they're willing to risk absolutely zilch, zero, nothing.
Well, they've got an excuse. I don't have enough money. I can't do any other work. I don't know what I'll do. So Really? Okay. Then you don't have any
So you're
ability
that
to
limited
adapt?
in your capacity.
Yes.
You know, that you're willing to
Realize what you're saying about yourself.
sacrifice your dignity, your integrity.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
You know, and you can say, well, it's easy for you guys to say because you're all self-employed and blah, 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 this and that, you know,
So
but we've made those choices.
Yeah.
Right.
We've all at some point worked for somebody else. You know, you do have choices. I think people need to open their minds to realize that there's life beyond no. Once you say no and you pay the consequences. So I'm not going to bore you with the rest of that video, but he goes on to basically say, I want accountability for what's going on the ground. Our senior leaders need to be held accountable for the decisions they're making because it's costing lives, and he's demanding it, and he's very forceful in his words. Well, he was fired that very day or next day. He was fired from his job, not out of the Marine Corps, but from being a battalion commander, which I think he was very calculated, and he knew that was going to happen. And to the credit of the Marine Corps and the military, it was the right thing to do to fire him. You know, you cannot have a structured military when people are going to dissent and question leadership that way.
But it was important that he did too.
100% important that he did, and he did the right thing. He didn't do the wrong thing, but he knew the consequence that came with it. I think it was very intelligent the way he did it. You know, so I think 24, 48 hours passed. That video went viral. People were like, yeah, you know, more people need to do this. And I would say right now, if anybody's listening right now who's in the military, has kids in the military, brothers, sisters, anybody they know in the military, tell them, get the fuck out right now. You know, I'm serious. I mean, with what it's becoming, you're part of a social experiment you don't need to be a part of. You know, they're going to put things in your body that don't need to be there. They're going to make you do things that are going to make you question yourself, your own integrity, where 10 years from now, you're going to wonder why you ever went through with it. You know, it's not to say I don't honor anybody's service. As somebody that served, I 100% honor their service, but we're living in a time right now where I am scared for these young men and women, for the injustices that are going to be, you know, perpetrated upon them. And I don't know. I mean, this is really a hard thing for me to say, you know, because of course I honor their service. Of course I respect them, and I'm very, very thankful for them putting themselves on the line. But the mission is no longer to go kill the enemy. The mission now is something completely different, you know? So let's play the next video, please. Because I'm sure he went through some mental gymnastics, did a lot of mental exercises before he posted this next video, which is pretty interesting. He's in this old school bus here, you know, because he has to been going through that thought process, that cycle, saying, okay, what's going to happen next, you know, to me. So.
Hey everybody, Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller coming at you from an abandoned school bus in eastern North Carolina. If you know me, you know. I've been overwhelmed by the outpouring of support over the last 72 hours since I made some statements in the public. I've also really appreciated the candor and the opposition, the people who think I should have handled it differently. I think the debate is healthy, and I appreciate and respect all sides of the conversation. But after I've meditated on everything, my higher purpose, my path, the path of the Marine Corps, United States, I've come to a place where I feel at peace with making some further statements, and that's the purpose of this video. You know, I'm not a religious guy, and I don't know if it's the outpouring of people and all the support that I've had, but part of me feels like everything in the last 25 years of my life may have happened to bring me to this point right now. Whether it's my entrepreneurial success, whether it's my combat experiences, whether it's the people that I've had in my life, they've all played a part in my successes and failures have brought me to this moment. So before I get to exactly what I want to say, I have two administrative notes. The first one is I just want to clarify my legal status. I have been relieved of my command, but I am still a United States Marine. Currently, I am not pending legal action. I think the plan was to hide me away for 3 years, let an investigation take place, but not send me to a board of inquiry where they would have separated me on other than honorable conditions. And so I had the choice where I could remain silent, keep my retirement for 3 years.
So again, it's kind of a lengthy video. I'm going to resign my commission. He resigns his commission 17 years in. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, let me explain this real quick. 20 years, you're going to retire with, I think, 2/3 of your pay. and full benefits, medical benefits coverage for the rest of your life.
Yeah, he said a couple $1 million that he was going to be giving up.
Stability for his family, security. Imagine his wife right there. She must be thinking, like, holy shit, like what's going on here? But that's a man willing to give everything up to really go into this fight. And he talks about this later on in that video. He says, you know what? We're just getting started. He says, you have no idea what I'm capable of. People have had enough. They're fed up, and that's not a domestic terrorist. Like somebody's going to call him that, right? Somebody on the other side is going to say that's a domestic terrorist. He's threatening violence or, he's making veiled threats against senior leadership. Well, no. That doesn't make you a terrorist. That makes you a patriot. That makes you somebody that's willing to fight for what you believe, and bring other people into the fight with you. Because that's empowering for me. I think everybody in this room at some point has kind of felt alone in this movement. Felt like, man, shit, am I the only one doing this? Am I the only one that feels this way? Am I the only one willing to go to great extremes to save this country? But when people come out and say it publicly, it's strengthening for all of us, So
what are you going to do if they say, hey, you got to force your employees to vaccinate and this and that? I'm just throwing it out there. What are you guys going to do?
No, I'm gonna make Bobby get vaccinated. I just want to see
we're
what
going to hold the
happens to him
vaccine
close.
clinic at the Palomine room. Everybody's going to get vaccinated. Everybody's getting vaccinated.
So my daughter got called into her work. She's literally only been there a couple months. It's her first post-college job, and she's the only one in the office not vaccinated. And not only did she get confronted, but man, the one gal was just like yelling and telling her, it's people like you are the reason this economy is going to crash. And if I had known you had been this stubborn, I wouldn't have hired you in the first place. And,
Really?
and she could have, it's super easy to go get a fake vaccine card. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And people are using them all over the place. But,
She doesn't want to comply.
No, she's a Christian, and she says, hey, that's just lying too. So if she's,
And that's compliance.
I feel the same way. Non-compliance is the only way that's the only way.
Yep.
So my wife works at the hospital, and we all know what's been going on there. And there's a large percentage of nurses and medical personnel there at the hospital that are saying, no, we're not going to do this. We had a great rally. What was that, 2 weeks ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Almost 3 weeks ago.
Another one last week.
Yeah. And people are showing up in great numbers supporting this, But my wife says, you know what, I'm not going to play this game. They said, well, you know what, if you're not going to get the vaccine, you need to be tested. Well, I'm not doing that. You need to fill out this questionnaire. I'm not doing that. You need to give us your status. I'm not doing that. Defiance is the only way we're going to get through this. So she thought for sure they're going to fire me. Gets a phone call the next day and says, hey, can you work an extra shift? Because they're so short-handed. Yeah. And it's not to be disrespectful. It's not to put anybody in a hard spot. I hate putting the people I work with or the people above me, when I was an employee in a difficult situation. I never want to put them in a spot to make hard decisions for me. But that's their job. They're going to have to make those hard decisions at this point because there's so many people who are coming out and saying, you know what, I'm just not doing that. My wife has worked all through COVID, helping people, in the hospital, as have everybody, right? Every nurse, every doctor, every medical person has helped people throughout this crisis. And now to shit on them and say, hey, you're not going to continue to do this job. Thanks for your service. But, if you don't get this jab, I don't care how you feel about it. You can't do your job any longer. She'll walk.
Terrible. And that's going on in the fire department, like I mentioned. You're gonna
tell me about that, Lani. That's interesting.
So I'm in contact with a guy. I want to actually remote him in here, and he's front lines on this fight. He had a vaccine injured kid, so he's always eyeballing the vaccines, the different side effects. That of course pharmaceutical companies that control the propaganda don't put any of that out. It gets squashed. So anyway, he's been on that train, and then now as a firefighter, he was worried about this mandate. So we started talking again, and the recent thing was that the union, the IAFF, which is a big union within our nation, is not fighting for their employees' choice. So they're going to pull their dues and lawyer up and get ready to fight this thing on the legal end because they have the retirement stuff on the line. And I'd had the real conversation with them. I said, well, dude, is it worth the fight? Do you want to stay in it that bad? Because at this point, it's going to get gnarly for you. I can see, everyone could see that coming. Do you want to fight it, or are you going to exit now and just start doing your own thing? And he said, no, it's a worthy fight. And I give him all the credibility and, honor for that, because those that are going to do that and defy it are the ones that are going to bust this thing down. And then there it is again. You have shortage of nurses, teachers, military, firefighters because of mandates. Not because these people are dumb or risking everyone's life. He's a paramedic. He's worked through the entire pandemic. He's willing to wear a mask and do certain things, but forcing the shot is his line in the sand, and he's going to hold it. So when people start showing up, realize that that's from the government mandate.
Sure.
Because, and you know, he's that Marine. I love how he's talking about his higher power and his calling, what you believe in and stand for. If you are a Christian, you 100% believe in free will and choice. God set up tension from day one. You had choice. We are not designed to be told what to do. That's why all these other countries with dictators have fallen every time in history, because deep in our souls, we are not supposed to be told this is all you're going to do. We were meant to have choice. We may make the wrong choice, but even God himself said, you get choice.
Well, even biblically, you know, that in the Old Testament, the Jews had the judges. It was a you would present your case to the judges. They decide, and they wanted a king, and they were like saying, "Man, we want to have a king like these other countries." And God said, "Man, you really don't want a king." But they begged for it. So finally, He said, "All right, check it out."
Yeah.
But to think that it was not until 1775 that we had 1776 that we had a country, the first experiment in the world
Self-government.
in self-government.
Amazing.
You know,
Amazing.
Yeah.
I always say 1775 because that's when the Marine Corps was created, but 1776.
Oh, no.
So,
It took them like, what, 3-4 years to get it actually, you know.
you know, I'll tell you, to think that it took that long for people to say, hey, enough's enough.
Yeah.
And some 200-something years later, here we are watching it fall apart now. You know, not because the experiment was wrong or because it was a weak premise, but because we're going back to the very thing that we were fighting against to make the experiment
And
work.
they were scared to death of a overarching central government. You know, they called it a fearful fire because they knew it could just get out of control. They were super afraid just of this, what's going on right now. This is what this is.
Yeah. And without if COVID's not your issue, how about taxes? Do you like working until June to pay the government to do whatever you want with your money and you hardly can trace $1 of it?
Oh, well, I do because the government takes care of me. I love it. You know?
Right.
Yeah, government takes great care of me.
They're doing the remodel on my building right now. Yeah.
Holy
I got an idea, it's not polished up yet. I was thinking about it last night before I went to bed, but what if we got all the people in California we could to sign a declaration that says we will not comply, we will not concede? I'm just saying, what if we had all these people and we signed our names on it? I mean, our word, and you, if you pull out of that and you chicken out, you get, you know, you kind of get cast out of the group to where, you know what I mean? You're going to get cancel cultured on you. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm just saying, because I will put my name on the line. I will say, hey, you know what? I will not comply. What if we had 30% of the businesses in California that says, do whatever you want, and we all stood together on the same day? I mean, the thing about it is we can't be fractured on this. We can't be
it's
like
be everybody.
Everybody at once. And we can't comply and then try to reverse that. We need to say no right away. It was just an idea.
Absolutely, John. I mean, what I think is we need to be a sanctuary county, because I guarantee you when these mandates come down, our supervisors here locally are going to say, well, it's beyond us. It's above us. It's not up to us. It's a state.
Out.
So why don't we why don't we just break the whole system and say, you know what? We don't need all that.
I think we get 50% of the businesses in Shasta County.
Sure. Just make it a sanctuary and say that bullshit's not going to go on here. You know, we're going to build a proverbial wall around a county.
Yeah.
Or counties, you know, we'll include Siskiyou, Tama, whatever, Northern California, and we'll say, you know what, that's not going to happen up here. We're not going to comply. We're going to go on business as usual. If you want to, you know, vaccinate yourself and shoot yourself with, go ahead, whatever. But you will not make your employees do that. You will not make that.
Don't force it. It's that simple.
Well, now's the time to rally everybody together. Really, I mean, in your close circles, you should be rallied together. You got to know who you can count on. I know next Saturday there's a rally that's trying to get all the groups together. Yeah, and I
think that's at Maggie's house.
Is it? I believe it's medical workers, school teachers. We should post that on our Facebook
Saturday,
page.
I believe, right?
But everybody needs to be supporting everybody, and that's what the medical workers, they really appreciated seeing just average citizens out there, you know, and carrying signs for them.
A quick pitch, because you know, we all saw this with the masks and the shutdowns. It's not going to stop here unless we stand up. People, oh no, it's just a mask. It's not bad. Now it's the shot. Now, Okay.
What's
so
next?
we're seeing it's just going to keep going unless we stop it. Sign the recall. We need leaders that can see that too, and will stop it. And keep.
Are we allowed to
maintain your
say
choice?
where we're at with the recall?
Yeah. Well, it's been announced that we got enough certified signatures for Modi. Woohoo! I mean, take a shot, celebrate. I know a lot of people have been left in the dark about this, and I'm not sure the strategy behind that, but 100% we got Modi. I'm pretty darn
Rickart's
sure.
on our way.
Rickart's on our way. Not sure about Khamenei, but hey,
We're not going to get Khamenei.
We only need
We don't-
three constitutional supervisors.
As far as Khamenei goes,
He gets to
Khamenei,
sit there and watch.
he's that's fine. Listen, we're not going to put any effort into recalling him. I'm really happy about Modi after what he's done to me.
Hey,
Yeah.
odds are super high that I'm going to get an open container ticket on the steps of the Board of Supervisors on the day that Leonard
I'll
has
take
to
a
walk.
shop with you.
Yeah, you come on down.
The sheriff will probably take a shot with you. They're not going to
So,
ticket you.
maybe you guys don't know this. This is day 15 of me not drinking. I have not had
What?
a drink.
Wow.
This is day 15.
Good for you.
But I might break it out for that. If that happens, I might have to. So.
I'm proud of you.
Well, thanks, brothers. I appreciate it.
Guys, that was good. We have so much that we can still talk about, and we'll continue this on the next one. But this is really good. Guys, get involved. The best thing you could do right now, people are asking us, what can I do? Show up at meetings, show up at these protests, speak out, make videos. I know Lani says he's uncomfortable making selfie videos, but it's pretty powerful when people can hear you speak, when your friends can see what you're saying. And social media can be a great tool. It can be a disaster if you let it, but it can be a great tool too to get your voice out and be heard. So I don't care if you only have 3 people listening, that's 3 people that are going to tell 3 people, and that exponentially grows really quickly. So
and like Woody said, get your house in order because stuff's coming.
It is coming.
Get your house
We
in
have a
order and
plan.
start working out. And to your close friends and brothers and people you trust, because unfortunately the state's passing stuff that could affect all of us big time.
It's time to draw the line in the sand, and stick by that. If you're not willing to draw your line in the sand right now with all this stuff, I mean, you're just going to keep moving on backwards and back off a cliff, like Woody would say, because we're pretty much there. But just draw a line in the sand, stick by.
And that line is drawn. And our side is wide open for anybody that wants to be on our side of the line. So all these people, every time we say something, it gets posted on social media and people tag the FBI. I don't know if you guys have seen that. FBI. They want the FBI to come get me, to come get us, for the things that we're saying.
I haven't seen that.
All the time. It happens on my social media. They tag, and I delete them,
Yeah.
These fucking idiots don't understand that the FBI will be on our side, that these people are patriots. Not all of them, but the ones that work up here, they're with us.
Yeah.
So every time you tag us, they're probably looking at you laughing because you're some liberal fucking clown. Go to their fake accounts.
Or
go to
fake
their
account,
Yeah, you're a clown. We're the ones you're going to be wanting to hide behind when everything goes down. Trust me. And when that dust settles, you'll be happy we're here.
We should all be on the side of liberty under the umbrella of freedom and liberty, and we all need to stick together, and then we'll have plenty of stuff to argue about later. We're not even going to be able to argue anymore if we don't stick together on this stuff.
Yeah.
You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, Yeah.
I like a good argument.
Yeah, but
just don't tell me how to live my life.
But don't tell me you're going to mess with my livelihood and my ability to feed my family. At that point, we're fighting, and if that makes me a terrorist, then so be it. But everybody in this room would fight if they threaten our family. So you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. We'll go on our merry ways.
Or we could join forces and fight about stuff and argue about stuff later.
I think if they actually had the cojones, I think if they had the guts to come in and talk with us, they'd realize that we probably agree on a lot of the same stuff. Because who's for corruption? If I show you corruption and you say, I don't want to go after that, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. They can do that. They're a nice person.
They're a nice person. They're nice.
Right.
We don't need any nice people. I'll leave it at this. I could sure use a mean tweet right about now.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
That's for sure.